New moon in Gemini. I'm actually going to do a couple astrology updates in this brief chat because there's a lot of shifts and things that are happening right now that I think are kind of important to note. So today, May 26th, the new moon in Gemini. It doesn't happen, well, it's at its height, I should say. Um, Later this evening, around 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, whenever I'm given the times for astrology and pretty much everything I do, it's always going to be based on Eastern Standard Time. I know people ask me that a lot, and I am very much aware and very much respectful of different time zones, but I am also Eastern Standard Time, so I'm never really giving time based on another time zone. So we got that new moon. It's 11:02 p.m. this evening on the 22nd, on the 26th. And we're talking, this is Gemini air. So we're talking connections and the ability to be spontaneous and just really looking at how we choose to connect with others. And I've been talking about this in conversation for a minute anyway, because I actually did the posts about the loneliness epidemic and just how there is this push and desire. People are talking about their desire for hugs and, feeling isolated. And then yet, I mean, at the same time, you're saying, oh, I can date someone and they don't have to call me every day. Like there's just things that are just totally incongruent and don't make any sense. I think one of the really big things is to make sure that you are completely living life, an enriched life offline. Especially with AI just kind of changing and transforming. AI has been here. That's your autocorrect when you're making a text and all these kind of things. Like, AI has been here. So it's not new, but it's morphing and changing. Um I saw something the other day where people were like, they were doing their therapy through AI, and I'm like, wait, what? Like that it completely defeats the purpose. Um Although I like my chat GPT, it is very helpful for certain things, but we have to be very mindful that we cannot continue to replace human connections. And so this new moon in Gemini is just a reminder of that. We have several of our larger planets. I mean, the sun, it doesn't count as a planet, but the sun is also in Gemini. So we are in Gemini season right now. And whenever we have a new moon, the sun and the moon are in the same zodiac sign all the time. Like, that's just how that goes. Um, and so with the sun being conjunct the moon right now, we're talking a lot of, checking in on individualism and making sure that our moods are in harmony with our actions, right? Being able to clearly be able to express your feelings is something that I always look at when it comes to a new moon as well. Um, you also got to look out for right now, because that new moon is in Gemini, people being kind of narrow-minded about things. The moon is also in harmony with Mercury right now. Mercury is also in Gemini, as well as Jupiter being in Gemini as well. Mercury, communication. So finding just, I think, and I've talked about this for a minute, just almost there being like a need for like a hearkening to like a Harlem Renaissance and that kind of thing. So we need our scribes and our photographers to really be documenting everything that we're going through, because this is a period of time that we really don't need to come back to. Like we don't need to repeat these things that are happening. So these things need to be recorded, along with the fact that basically a lot of revisionism is happening, and it's happening right in your face. And so they'll tell you, no, you were, things like, oh, there were happy slaves, and no, these things never occurred. They'll tell you that they didn't occur when we know that they did. It's like, if you don't have record of it, then you can't really dispute it. And so there is a need, a call to action, to actually be recording these things and making sure that we say that they happen. I mean, because this is something that also happens with I'm going to even go back to a Rodney King, which is the early 90s, where that was, one of the, we at that time, nobody, like, people didn't have camera phones and stuff like that. And so, I mean, somebody may have had a camera to take a picture, but that would have been a still, right? And then you could write the story however, but somebody had a camcorder and recorded it. And so we had recorded evidence of something happening, and the courts were still like, no, like, that's, like, they looked at that and then still tried to tell you, like, that's not what you're looking at. And so we see that continuously today, where everybody has a camera phone and everybody can record things quickly. They can put it on their live stream. They can, like, everything is up for grabs where that's concerned. And they'll still have you looking at it and telling you you're not looking at what you're seeing. So, I mean, that prone to anti-intellectualism and revisionism is harmful. So we have to keep, record of the things that are occurring. And then Jupiter is also in good aspect to the moon. Jupiter is about to also move into the sign of Cancer, which is going to be a huge shift. Well, I'll have a write-up on that coming up, but right now Jupiter and Gemini is really encouraging you to use your words and choose your words wisely. The moon is also in good aspect. That new moon is also in good aspect to Uranus. Uranus is in Taurus right now. So this need for independence. I mean, there's independence versus isolation, right? So you gotta be clear on that. There's independence versus isolation. And knowing the two, right? Knowing what the difference is. There's one thing to be very independent and be able to do things yourself, but then, I mean, there's another thing to be able to be in community and properly ask for help and be able to serve other people. And there's a trine aspect for the moon and Pluto. Pluto is in Aquarius, which is helping to usher in the age of Aquarius. A trine can be like really great influx of energy, or it can be like something like it's too much, because you can have too much good energy. So this is asking you to have like an emotional balance so you're able to better express yourself. Because strong emotions create like those emotional outbursts. So you want to be able to process your feelings so you know exactly what you're saying. Like, you want to actually know what you're feeling, so you know what it is that you're trying to express. And expression as a medium can be lots of different things. It can be painting, it can be writing, it can be dance. There's so many different ways to express yourself. So understanding what that outlet is like this is a great time during the new moon to understand like what outlets are helpful for you to express your feelings. So I think that's something that's important during this new moon time, to just set intentions to learn. It doesn't mean that, during this new moon that you have to like get those things started, but it's something that you should start to look at. So by the time we have the next new moon, you have something that you can implement. Also, the full moon coming up in another couple weeks is a good time to just kind of check in and say, hey, those intentions that I set, those things that I processed during the new moon, did I get them started? So it's a great time for that. Now, we have a couple shifts that are happening, that are going back and forth between Pisces and Aries, right? And so we have Saturn that is that's going to be shifting back and forth between Pisces and Aries for a second because of some retrogrades, right? So Saturn and Pisces, this is the thing, and I talked about this, I think, on the Neptune's Generations post. I will find the link for that. That's one of my favorite posts, but I'll find the link for that and post that with this. But the Pisces Aries axis, there's this space of basically breaking down of a lot of religious doctrine, like indoctrination, all of those things that were just like, oh, you have to do this way, things that are based in like fear tactics, and based in pretty much like someone else's agenda. Those things are going to unravel. And I know I talked about that in the Neptune and Pisces generation post, because we were coming up on Neptune and Aries, which was like, okay, now that you know all of these things, right? You've gained this insight, you've gained this enlightenment. How do you start the new thing, right? Like, how do you lay the groundwork and everything to get started with the new thing? And that's a huge hallmark of the Neptune and Pisces, Neptune and Aries thing that happens, because we have Neptune and Pisces from pretty much that 2011 through 2016, right? Because there's going to be some transits for Neptune and Aries in 2025, because Neptune was in Pisces, and then it went retrograde, and then it went direct, and then it moved into Aries, and then there's going to be a period of time where it's going to go retrograde in Pisces, right? So we're going to kind of have this space where we enlighten, and then we figure some stuff out, and then you get a chance to move forward in it, in the stuff that you said you figured out, and then kind of goes back and says, did we clear everything out? If we didn't, you'll see some things, it'll feel repetitive, and then you'll get a chance to recognize, enlighten, clear it out. Because I mean, this is just, I think, very realistic to understand that certain cycles and certain eras and certain frames of thought have to come to an end, because they don't, like, it doesn't work anymore. It worked for whatever it needs to work for. And so that Neptune and Pisces, Neptune and Aries is like, so there's certain warriors that need to awaken. There's certain ways that social justice and the social climate look, and there's certain things that we really, really need. And so we need a certain type of person to awaken as well, and not awaken and enlightened based in old doctrine, but based in doctrine that will move us forward. So that's that Neptune in Aries. Neptune is currently in Aries, but you're going to see it kind of transit back and forth into Pisces with some retrogrades. It's going to be in Aries. Neptune moved into Aries in March, and then it's going to go retrograde in Aries in July, but then we're going to have a shift back into Pisces in October with a Pisces retrograde. It's going to go direct in Pisces in December, and then it's going to move forward in Aries in January of 2026, and it's gonna stay there through 2038. So we have a pretty long transit in setting in the space, in the area, the energy that helps us to really set groundwork. Now Saturn is like us assessing our systems, right? And seeing how things work. So Saturn in Pisces is like us looking at those systems and the rules that we set for like spirituality, compassion, empathy, those kind of things, right? And then Saturn in Aries is going to be us like the action, right? So Aries is fire, Aries is initiative, Aries is initiation. So think how we can be assertive authentically in all that we learned, right? Because that part is going to be super important. So Saturn is in Pisces from March 2023 to May 2025. And then it moves into Aries on the 24th of May. So it just did. And it's going to be there until August 2025. And then we have a retrograde period where it does go back to Pisces for a moment from August 2025 to February 2026. And then from February 2026 to basically April 2028, it'll be in Aries. So you see how we have these structures of going back and forth from spiritual actualization and like really looking at what an awakening looks like to actually implementing the knowledge from that awakening. Like, what does that look like? We can't implement old structures. And I say this all the time as a child of the 90s, being raised in the 80s and the 90s. There are certain things that are just obsolete. They're obsolete. We can't do them anymore. And that's why we tend towards a lot of nostalgia, because it's like you can't do those things anymore. Were kids getting snatched up in the 80s and 90s? Damn right they were. We were scared of people in vans because kids was getting snatched up in vans and stuff, like, and they're still getting snatched up now. It just looks different, right? Because the reach is different, because you have the internet, and so kids are talking to people on the internet and then like willfully going and disappearing, but kids are still getting snatched up. It looks different, right? And so in the 80s and 90s, I mean, we were latchkey kids. We came home by ourselves. We cooked our own food and stuff like that. But these kids these days, like, it doesn't look like that. They're at Starbucks. They're going out to get their own stuff. In that way, they got Stanley cups. Like, that was not a thing. They're being raised different, but they're being raised different based on them having a different amount of resources and different access to resources. And so what we have to do in our parenting is meet them where their resources are, because the things that we had were obsolete. They don't exist anymore. We can't fit the 80s and 90s in today. That mindset kind of doesn't even exist. It came forward a bit with us, but we've also morphed our mindset to even live in today's world by today's standards. There are things that we remember and we say, oh, we should reach back and pull that back. And there's certain things that can fit, but a lot of it does not. And so we have to be okay with moving forward into what the new is. But that means that we have to actually survey what's new, understand it, respect it, and then move in it. That's going to be a huge theme with this, going back and forth in some of these Pisces and Aries energy. But we got this new moon in Gemini that's like, what's your communication look like? Like, are you truthful with yourself? Are you telling yourself the truth? Are you paying attention to these things? Do these things make sense? Right? How are we connecting with others? How are we linking with each other? Are we having, more superficial conversations, or are our conversations are we having conversations of depth, right? Because if we're talking enlightenment and we're talking learning new things, somewhere in there has to be something intellectual, and that is interesting in a space and time where a lot of things are based on anti-intellect. There's an aversion to the truth. There's an aversion to accountability. So I think that's an interesting take. That's something that is interesting to look at during a new moon in Gemini. So with that said, look at where Gemini falls in your natal chart. Those are going to be spaces where you want to assess your communication style, assess how often you're communicating with people, and be clear. I mean, like, we don't want to give depth to associates because they're only associate level, and that's cool. But we also don't want to treat people who should be in our VIP section as if they're associates, right? So learning to put proper boundaries on things is going to be super important. If you don't know anything about your natal chart, or you don't give a damn about anything on your natal chart, that's cool too. So new moon in Gemini, new moon energy is going to last over the next 2 days or so, because the moon cycles into a new zodiac every 2 days. So just know for the next few days, what you want to be working on is tightening up your communication, being truthful, being honest, and being authentic, and looking at ways that you can find that reciprocal energy in your relationships. So making sure that you're giving the same thing you're expecting to receive.